Guiding is one of my favorite passions that I really want to grow. I know that I'm 21 years. I have lived in the jungle and I used to be with animals, and I was even taught by our grandfather. He taught us that this tree, it can be used as this medicine and all the likes. This seed is actually from the watermelon. And elephants are one of the animals that practice seed dispersal. I have seen him since I was young. By that time, I always saw him. He was always passing at our cattle post. Our cattle post is at Makadikhadi entrance because he was on the way to Jack's camp. And that's how I know him. He was driving the cars that was written Uncharted Africa. My father, he told me about that the man is called Super. He's a giant man who is big. But sometimes when I just looked at him, I thought maybe this man could be fearful, but he's a man who loves people, who loves his environment.
That's my school of nature. And I wake up every morning, emails to download from the skies, checking what my vultures are doing up there, the crows, the eagles, and then down here, who's been here, where were they going, what did those tracks tell me, investigate what animals were doing.
The fresh diggings from the spring hares last night, digging for the grass roots over there. It's dry season, so they need these dry roots, you see. And
you have to constantly be aware of your surroundings. Make sure who's there, who's been, was it a lion, was it walking with its babies? Do I have to be extra cautious?
Yeah. The tail trying to sort of stand its ground.
You have to read your surroundings in order to survive out here.
Super is the guide. He's a professional one. He has been doing that for many years. So I also wanted to follow his steps, like one day to be on top like Super.
Yeah, that's a beautiful vulture's home, those palms there.
So you don't find them ugly?
No. If the world was to run as the vultures do run their world, this place would be fantastic because, more especially if you're looking at families. Both sexes takes it in turns to look after their young. And these vultures are known to be able to fly hundreds of kilometers in search of food, bringing back at least a quarter of their body weight for their little ones. Today, some people, they will just have children and off they go, never look after their kids and just leave them to their parents. Not like that with the vultures. You know, the vultures have empathy, they have a great feel of the reasons why they decide to breed.
The sign of a good guide is that he understands not only the fauna and flora, but also what his guests are after, and being able to translate what they are seeing in such a way that it deepens their understanding of their experience.
So it's easy to look at them and completely blame them for their look, but actually, you know what, they have the heart. They have the heart for their families.
To be a guide, you need to be able to share. You need to be able to deal with people. And also, you need to be able to read your guest.
Most of our guests, they fly in from Joburg to Mount, get into a charter, fly across the Makadikari National Park. The place just looks completely lifeless, flat, nothing around. 360 degrees, you're just seeing nothing. So they land with a few questions. Oh my God, where am I? What is out here? Because it does look like the great nothing, and they will be in a big shock
But on this occasion, it is Super that's in for a big shock. An old friend has returned to Botswana after many years in England.
As soon as we were coming up to the approach area to disembark, I actually got out first of the plane, so I spotted a big figure that I recognised very well.
Super.
How's it, man?
And he looked at me, and I don't think I've ever seen him surprised before.
Remember?
I was like, can't be. It cannot be.
How long ago was it?
16 years.
Yes!
Because he was one of the big truck drivers from Francistown. He used to bring food to Jack's every Thursday.
Okay.
This is my wife.
Hi.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Good to meet you, and well, you're even married.
So to see him there, having a wife and stuff like that, you know, life changes.
Then, so now you're in my hands again.
I gave you a shock when you looked at me.
So that was 16 years ago, so I was 18 at the time, and just left school, and was on a gap year, they call it, between school and university, and to come here on my own and then to work for Uncharted Africa doing sort of logistics and supplies based in Francistown. And instantly Super was this guy that we'd all heard about, Super Sande, 6'5", a big man, big presence, massive smile. You're like, okay, this is the guy. You can feel his sort of presence a bit.
Good.
But Ralph also is, he and Super just work in tandem beautifully, and I'm sure they've learnt off each other.
So we come across the window.
Super has worked for Ralph's family ever since he started guiding. When both men learned their trade from one of the legends of the bush, Ralph's father, Jack BOUSFIELD.
My father first came out here professional hunting in '62 and was hunting desert species, and just realized that it wasn't sustainable. It simply wasn't sustainable any longer. The numbers of game just weren't there, and that things had to change. It was part of his transition, going from a very good professional hunter to hanging up his guns completely and changing over into photographic tourism ultimately. This is an extraordinary area, and my father totally fell in love with it when he first arrived here. And there's an amazing quote which totally sums up this area and sums up my father. My father asked, "Makadi, what is out here?" And somebody said to him, "Nothing, only idiots go there." And he said, "Fine, that's the place for me." He discovered an area that was really the old Africa, without romanticizing it, but just an area that was properly wild. There's nobody living here. One of the last areas that hadn't been damaged by modern man.
When Jack passed away in '92, then Ralph decided to take over this camp and built it as his remembrance of his father.
Does the lioness on her own or with the...
Between the two of them, they have made Jack's camp into one of the top safari destinations in Africa.
If you see them, let me know, because I'd like to... We'll head out there then later. Super's quite an extraordinary man. When he joined us, he was a young kid, just at the beginning of his growth spurt. He had an immense enthusiasm and a thirst for knowledge. And although he came from a very humble background, he really has been self-made. It's extraordinary what he's managed to achieve.
This is Africa.
He's always been like my kid brother, and that I never had, and it's been fantastic, being able to be sort of a mentor to him.
Good.
His knowledge of this area is just immense. He's probably spent more time here continuously than anybody else. So his knowledge of where things are and just the subtle changes, it's all about the subtle changes in this kind of environment. Being able to predict and go, oh, there's a movement over there, or there's a sound over there, from the experience knows this is what is likely to be. There can be lion over there, or there are birds that are following some food in some other area. So it's really fantastic spending time with him.
And see, this is a much elongated track and much longer close. You see that? Put them like that. But if we're talking of sightings on safaris, then I can only guess that they think they do live over 6,000 years. So we don't know. This is your zebra, wild beast, and your Cape hare.
Who else could pick a blade of grass going along at 40 kilometres an hour?
Whoa! Great, this is something to see.
And say, spotted something very special here.
See this brown stuff on the grass stem here?
And then go and tell you that you've got not only one markings of an animal, which you can hardly see, and it looks like a burnt bit of grass.
Brown hyena scent marking.
And then to say, actually, there's 2 scents here.
The top one is a message left behind to communicate with the members of the same clan.
The one that's marking an area of 100 kilometres squared. So to have that knowledge and that sort of attention to, with your eyes when you're driving along, do that's incredible, isn't it?
Now, for them to basically be able to communicate with all their family members, this has got to happen every 200 meters. They leave a pest on the grass stem. The bottom one will continue to send the messages for about 6 to 8 weeks.
He's got so much in his brain about what he wants to tell you. I mean, the first time I met him, he was exactly the same, and yet now he's just got a better way of describing it because he's been in this industry for 23 years.
And Super has spent so much of those years in the Makgadikgadi that he no longer wonders where his first home is.
Yeah, I've been the longest in Jack's camp. Yeah. As a young boy to an old man. In my 20 years, I've spent more time here. Over 300 days of my year I'm here. So, when I'm going out of here, even though I'm going to my place, it feels like I'm going to visit my family. Gweta is my second home.
Jack's camp is like my first home because 80% of my year I'm at work. Obviously, I love my family, but this is how we grew up, knowing that one of the parents will go way out there, work, bring money back home. My wife is Patani Sande. Very nice lady. We got together 19 years ago. Before I even knew that we were gonna fall in love, I used to give them a ride from the cattle post down to the village every now and then. The approach towards everything is what made me fall for her, because she's a very honest and straightforward person, and I like people that don't bend just to please someone. I like people that always faces reality. She does all the work while I'm away. Not that the kids will agree with that, because they probably think that they are the ones that are doing all the work. But I know that she does work very hard, because, you know what, kids is not a joke. I have got 5 kids: Stuart, Catherine, Heather, Tiny, and Eric. 2 sons and 3 girls in between.
After being away from his family for an average of 2 months at a time, one of the first things that Super does is take his family on a shopping spree.
How much? 25?
25.
25 kilo, okay, good. Oh, thanks. It's a good shop because it entertains your kids, and most of the stuff is very cheap, so just for them to be happy for a short period of time before you go to town and buy proper stuff. I have good ones. But you know for sure, if you buy here, you know you're going to be back shortly. And they won't last you that long. Okay.
What concerns Super is that his absence makes it difficult to keep up with his children's progress. With Botswana's literacy rate one of the highest in Africa, he knows his children will need to do well at school to stand a chance in the job market. Things have changed a lot since he was a kid.
Well, I went to school in the 80s, but really I didn't spend much time in school because I didn't see the importance of schooling, which is a shame.
It was fortunate for him that skills he acquired as a boy would later prove useful to him as a guide.
Growing up, I basically did a lot of cattle herding, that's for sure, because I grew up under a farming family, so I spent a lot of my time in the bush.
I actually used to know every single cow's track. And the whole herd that we had, I could tell that, okay, so-and-so and cow, because we used to name them, have gone this way. And I'll track it. It's like a fingerprint. You needed to learn all these things, know what a jackal tracks looks like, what a leopard, cheetah, lion, because if you don't actually know what you're looking at, you'll just walk onto lions and you can die out here so easily.
Because he had minimal schooling, Super never tires of acquiring knowledge. He maintains that if one is open to it, there is much to be learned from your immediate surroundings, particularly from the people you meet.
I've been very fortunate in my life. I've managed to spend some time with the same people in a lot of different places. I worked within the central Kalahari for a while, around Kangwa and Kaka. You know, the same people are very knowledgeable people when it comes to the bush.
The reason why I'm not joining you guys is the fact that every time I participate in these walks, people turn around and ask me questions. Yet we have got the people right there who have the knowledge.
Having met the same people, to me, was an eye-opening to the desert environments. Obviously, I did have my skills of surviving in the areas where I grew up, but when it comes to the desert areas, you go back to square one and start learning fresh.
What I've learned is that you can live for the rest of your life out here if you know where things are and how they look like in different times of the year.
Not only can guests learn how to sustain themselves should they get stranded out here, but they also discover ways of amusing themselves while awaiting rescue.
This is not eaten but used as a toy. See, it cannot sting him because he's flattening his hand, because it has to grab and turn its bump to sting.
The San have a great respect for nature. Nothing is wasted or killed needlessly. Even this scorpion is returned to a specially dug hole. Many thousands of years of acquired knowledge ensures that everything of use in this sparse landscape is known.
This here you see is from the brandy bush. As it produces strong branches. It says they just cut the whole branch from the brandy bush and put it in the fire so that they can be able to remove the outer parts.
We regard them as the first people of the Kalahari. You know, these people are something else when it comes to trekking and survival skills of the bush. I've never learned so much in my life.
The San have no chief or headman, but make decisions affecting the group by consensus. This is one of the great traditions that the Botswana share with the first people of the Kalahari. There is a Setswana saying that the highest form of war is dialogue. Consequently, democracy can be seen at work through all levels of Botswana society, the most common of which is the village khotla.
Let's do it. Let's find out exactly why are we not allowed to use the water. What is it? This is the main khotla. This is where we gather and look at a village as a whole, where we want to go.
One of the main points on the agenda today is something very close to Super's heart, because it will protect the education of his children. The construction of a new library with educational facilities and free internet directly across the road from the khotla has run into problems.
The council gave us a go-ahead to start working on the thing. Now only to realize that no, we can't use the water from a different yard, so we need to quickly rig some water in there as soon as possible.
Back in the khotla, anyone is allowed to have their say, and no one may interrupt. Consequently, meetings often last for many, many hours. Super's mind wanders to meerkat society, where there is no such problem with decision-making. It is a matriarchal dictatorship, where the alpha female has absolute power.
These are meerkats that we've been working with for over 10 years, okay? They're very, very used to seeing people around them. You can see there's some little ones in there. So let's take a walk.
So super, is this their home here?
This whole place is connected underneath. Every 2 weeks, their homes get covered in parasites and they have to continue to move.
They fear eagles because those are one of their biggest enemies. Therefore, you see them jumping up on trees and scanning the areas and having sentinels. And if you sit still and not move, they will jump on your head, just searching for the higher ground so they can see things like jackals, honey badgers from far, all their enemies. You know, the higher, the better. As long as you don't make sudden movements or start trying to touch them or anything like that, they will jump on your head.
Normally there will be one that will be chosen to do the scanning, and then he makes a call. If he says, let's go, the place is safe, they mean it. It's important because also with all the numbers of enemies that they have, they know there's no jokes in the world of meerkats, and whenever they say something, they mean it, and they will go.
It's all about teamwork, really, where discipline dictates how well they do as a group, just like in the world of sport.
I like football. Football is one of my dreams. I'm not very good at it, but something that I have passion to watching.
Super founded a local football team that play just about every weekend. Even though he may only get to cheer them on every couple of months as his guiding duties allow, he makes sure that he supports them any way that he can.
Well, I basically do make sure that the team stays alive by making sure that they get, like this kit over here, we got this from Switzerland. Same applies to the boots. The name of our team is Gweta Springbok. I'll just show you. Yeah. Gweta Springbok. To put an animal name, you know. This is also part of the conservation cave, Gweta Springbok. I'm not a rich man, but what makes me happy, if I see all these kids here, whatever I put aside as my money after I've sorted out my family, I would just like to see it doing something for other people if I can. Well, alcohol is obviously a big problem worldwide, and this is really something that is affecting this country in a big way. To me, they've told me that this basically keeps them going, takes them away from problems. If you are out here, you're talking, you're all running and you're sweating, at the end of the day, you take a shower, you feel so fresh.
One would think that with his family, his cattle station, his soccer team, and his respected place in the community, Super would have mixed feelings about spending so much of his life in the wilderness.
I got to kick it, man.
But it is anything but that.
It's been a while since I last kicked it.
The makhadi and everything that goes with it has become a drug to his soul.
Guiding and playing soccer is two different things.
If I leave Jax for a week or two, when I come in, it's like, oh my God, where's everything? It's gotten into my blood. And every time that I spend a day somewhere else not doing what I do, there'll be a feeling that there's been a gap in my chain. I've been living in that tent for 15 years, and I think the trees knows even my sound. Every single sound that comes on, that surrounding, I know it.
If there's a new palm frond that is about to fall, I will know about it because I spend more time in that tent than anywhere else in my life.
Super, what happened to that 7.5-ton truck?
It done over 100,000 kilometres when I was driving it.
In 16 years, come on, it must have done at least 2 million
That same
kilometers.
engine. I had a lot of hours in that truck.
I know.
Picked up a lot of locals, did a lot of taxiing. Super is someone in demand. I mean, I remember when I was here 16 years ago, he was again in demand there. You know, we want Super. People come back. There's one lady who's apparently lives in Bath in England who's been coming 23 years, and every year she wants Super. You know, that's credit to him, isn't it? That she'll come out and still learn things from him.
Leading back-to-back safaris every 2 or 3 days sounds debilitating, but this is exactly what keeps Super going. He feeds off his guests' excitement at discovering this unique ecosystem, and often their discovery of something hidden within themselves.
People sometimes in their worlds, they don't get to be who they are because there's always people around them sort of interfering with their lives. So when they come out to places like where we are here, they look 360 degrees. Nobody. It's just them. They just cannot believe it. That there is still part of the world where you can have nobody around you. The Makadikari is a very powerful place. It's huge, empty, vast skies. And when people see not a building, no towers, no other cars, just themselves, they completely lose it. They just put people into tears. You can easily tell yourself that you do know who you are, but up until you sit there by yourself in 360 degrees, nobody, no sound, nothing, and you hear your heart beat, then you know, God, there is places around the world where you can find yourself.
I like space and the silence. And there's been a major change in my life through this job. But when I was learning from Jack, I did not know that this was something that I was going to use as to make the living out of, and something that I will enjoy sharing with people. So I always grew up with the interest of looking at animals and stuff like that, but never really thought it would come up to a job that one can live on like today. And I worked very hard on it. And I'm still working very hard because every day of my life out here, you learn something. But you have to have the energy. And you have to be wanting to do it because it's not easy. You have to find things to learn about.